Okay, in this section we are going to use congruent triangles. So here's how it looks. Here are the steps we take when using congruent triangles. First step, identify two triangles to use. Okay, so we're going to use these two triangles. We're going to prove that they're congruent. Now once we have two congruent triangles, we can state two parts or parts of those two triangles are congruent using our friend corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Or you can just write CPCTC. So in a lot of these problems we're going to first have to prove that some triangles are congruent. So we'll use maybe angle, side, side, side angle, side, one of those. And then our next step would be stating that the two parts are congruent, and the reason would be CPCTC. Okay, so let's try it. Here we've got, in this diagram, we've got triangle PQR kind of on top of triangle PSR. We've got some information given. We've got a bisector there. We've got two line segments that are already congruent. What we need to do, though, we need to show that angle Q up here, we need to show that that's congruent to angle S. Okay, we don't know that yet. We need to show that. So the way we can show that, if we can show that this triangle is congruent to this triangle, then we've got congruent triangles. So we can say that the parts are congruent. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. So first, let's prove that these are congruent. All right, so we're going to have a bunch of statements and some reasons for those statements. I'm going to start off with the given information. PR, PR bisects angle QPS. That is given. Okay, so I'm going to use that information right away. I'm going to, since I have a bisector of an angle, so QPS, so this angle is bisected in two. So that means I've got two congruent angles, QPR and SPR. So from that information, I can say that angle QPR is congruent to angle SPR. And that is because I have an angle bisector. That's what a bisector does. That is the definition of an angle bisector. Okay, so that gives me an angle. I'm also given this information that PQ is congruent to PS. So PQ I'll indicate with this hash mark and this hash mark. Those are congruent. Okay, so now we're trying to prove that these two triangles are congruent. Our options so far, we've got the side, side, side. We've got side, angle, or angle, side, angle. Right now we've got a side and an angle, so I don't think we're going to use the side, side, side. We've got a side and an angle. Can we come up with another angle to do angle, side, angle? Or can we come up with another side to do side, angle, side? Well, looking at the diagram, we can't state that these are congruent yet because we don't know. That's what we're trying to prove in the end. However, we can state that PR right here is congruent to itself because PR of this triangle is congruent to PR of this triangle. So let's state that. PR is congruent to PR. And that is the reflexive property. Okay, so we've got our angle, we've got our side. Actually, I never put that other side in there, so let me do that quickly. It was given to us that PQ is congruent to PS. So that is given. All right. So now finally I can say that triangle QPR is congruent to triangle SPR, and that is because we found a side and an angle and a side. Okay, so that means if this triangle up on top is congruent to this triangle on the bottom, that means all of the parts are congruent. So now I can finally state what we set out to prove, because those are two corresponding parts. I can finally state that angle Q is congruent to angle S. My reason? Those are corresponding parts of congruent triangles. So they're congruent. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Okay, there we go. We just used congruent triangles to prove something. Hope that helps.